Overture curtain lights. I'm live apparently. According to YouTube, I am live. So if you can hear me and if you can see me, let me know because it's a sunny morning. The sun hasn't quite. Yeah, it's just risen, and it's a sunny morning in winter, summer, depending on where you are. And as always, I am here to talk partly about movies. I've actually got movie stuff to talk about this time. It's not just going to be me waffling about Ava Gardner. So let me know whether you can hear me and whether the five of you can see me as well. Hi, Dick. Yeah, I'm well. I went out yesterday, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I'm well. I've had two espressos so far this morning, which is about right. I was a little short on sleep because I sometimes don't sleep great before a live stream because I'm starting this at 7 o'clock in the morning my time. But doing great. The espressos were great. Here's the thing. Sometimes my machine, my espresso machine is variable and I will grind the beans. I will do everything I need to do. I'll make the espresso and it's just not right. And then other times I will make the espresso and it's perfect. A ray of sunshine shoots down out of the sky and illuminates me while I drink it. Both of the ones I had this morning were great. Yeah, Sal's doing okay. She's asleep. Franny says, "Hi, Franny." Franny says that I can be heard from the north of England. Ian B. Garvey says he can hear him. Rochester, New York. It's 3 p.m. yesterday for one of us is time traveling. It's me. I'm time traveling. D. Lee's here. Hi, all. Coming across clear. All three of us, me, Carol, and Roxy, says Dick, joining you tonight. Fantastic. Oh, good. Things are working. This is great. I've actually got notes, which is surprising. I've actually made some. What I do is if I see anything that I want to talk about on a live stream, I'll bookmark it on my browser, and then I can just make notes from it. It's great doing it that way. So let me tell you about my Tuesday last week, because Tuesday last week was. That's the last of the espresso, by the way. Tuesday last week was movie related, but it didn't come. It just didn't work for me. It was a string of disasters. So I had a 6:30 appointment to go and see a media preview of a new movie, Pillion, which is a gay BDSM movie starring Alexander Skarsgård. So I had to go into the city for it. I went out to the Nova in Carlton to see it. So unusual day. It's 38 degrees centigrade, and it's cloudy and it's humid. It's oppressively hot. And so I went into town, and then I've got to take 2 trams to get to Carlton to go to the Nova. So it's pretty hot. And I decided I'd do 2 things at once. I would get a video out for the Travel Channel, just doing a little bit of walk around Melbourne on a hot day. And so I get there, I've got my Osmo Pocket camera there. I've got my lapel microphone. What I don't have is an SD card to put into the camera. So I wasn't going to buy a new one because I've got a bunch of them, but they're all at home and one of them's connected up to the computer. So I can't do that. So I walk up Swanston Street and then take the tram the rest of the way because it's too hot to walk. And I get to the Nova and I get into the waiting area outside the cinemas. And it gets towards 6:15, which is the cutoff point to get let into the cinemas. And I suddenly look at the ticket again on my phone. And the preview is not at the Nova. It's at the Kino, which is in the middle of Melbourne. And it's too late for me to take a tram down into the city and get there in time to watch Pillion. So I go home feeling miserable, feeling stupid about myself, feeling totally crap. I've sweated my guts out this day and I haven't got anything achieved at all. So I sent a very nice email to the people a woman called Leanne who runs the previews for that particular distribution company. And I sent her an email the next morning and go, listen, I'm really sorry. I went to the wrong cinema. I'm feeling stupid about it. I still want to be considered for future previews. And she sent me the most lovely email saying, I did that a month ago. I went to the Nova instead of the Kino myself, and I'm running the bloody thing. So she was very charming about it. Everything was all right, but it was the most disastrous day I've had in a long time. And I felt really shitty about it until I got that email. Hi, Siren 858. Hi, Dick. Yeah, so that was my Tuesday last week. We've had some really hot days. We've had some kind of warm days. It's going mad here, but I do want to see Pillion because it looks like an interesting movie. And one of the things I like to do when I'm offered preview screenings of things is go to movies that aren't my normal kind of movie. Go to the ones that don't sit in my comfort zone. And so I did want to see Pillion for that reason. And I hear good things about it. There have been a few reviews out about it, but it just didn't happen. I did sit down and have a really nice baguette and a cup of coffee while I was waiting, but that was the only positive thing about that evening. So anybody else had a really shitty day like that lately, where you make your best efforts, but it just does not hit for you? Can take a sip of drink after that little tirade. Okay, let's do a weather report. What's the weather like there? Here it's only 12 degrees, but it's sunny. We had a cool night because it pissed down with rain yesterday. So it's 12 degrees and sunny at the moment. It's going to get up to about 20. The sun's coming out. The cats are happy. All is right with this corner of the universe. Looks like Dick got to be number one on the chat again. Franny's number 3. Dick says, finally dry, a little rain earlier. Yeah, well, you live where you live. If you're living on the coast of Europe, well, an island off the coast of Europe, it's going to get a little bit like that. D. Lee says, not bad, but as my worst travel mistakes, I refer to them as doing a Mr. Bean. Yeah, it's I was down on myself, which I shouldn't have been, because one of the things basically was all my fault. But they were minor things, but they just accumulated, and particularly when it was hot. And it doesn't matter when it's 38 degrees, it doesn't matter how much you drink. Inevitably, you're going to get dehydrated. There you go. It says 34 degrees Fahrenheit, one of the few days above freezing in the last month. I would never live in a place like that. I just can't stand the cold. Friday says cold and wet here, but the flat is 18 degrees centigrade. That's okay, Friday. Yeah, that's sweatshirt weather. And I make sure that I'm trying to, these days I'm trying to make sure I don't get too cold. I don't mind getting too hot, but I'm trying to make sure I don't get too cold. Carol says it's been 14 degrees C in February here. Nice weekend for us. Spring flowers appearing and Easter in 6 weeks. Yeah, I don't particularly do Easter. I mean, I don't even get the days off now that I'm kind of working for myself on YouTube and retired apart from that. So those things don't matter as much to me. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, KN says, good to see the near mythical movie room in the last few videos. Yeah, I fixed it up and I got it organized to the point where I could use it again. I put everything onto the shelves because Julian from Collector Creations came over and we shot a couple of videos in the movie room. And so I had to get it all organized. I spent hours alphabetizing and getting things on shelves that had just been stacked up on the floor, because there is that tendency to just stack things up on the floor. But I will be shooting most of the videos up there. I'll move the couch around against the different walls to vary up the way it looks. But I'm kind of glad I got that done. The man cave is next. And Sal keeps saying to me, I'll help you with it. She's now got a new gig doing some interesting work. but we're going to do that. And one of the things I'm going to do, and this is reluctant, if I had an enormous storage space, I wouldn't be doing this. But I'm going to be getting rid of all my CDs. Not getting rid of the records, but I'm getting rid of the CDs because I'm not using them. And I know I can sell them at auction and get some bucks for them. So I'm going to be doing that probably this month. Well, this month's almost over, but within the next month, I'm going to give them off to the auction house and they're going to flog them off for me at auction. I may do that with some of the books I haven't read in years as well. But for the most part, these two boxes, these two boxes, you can just see the edge of there, are full of CDs I haven't watched in 5 years. So I'm going to get rid of them just for the sheer need of space. Dick says, yep, indeed, did a bit of freeze framing in order to look at my shelves. I really should do a shelf tour at some stage, Dick. Carol says, Easter is mainly a nice long weekend for us. Shops have been full of Easter eggs since Christmas. Yeah, we get, Easter eggs a little later, but we do get hot cross buns, which is stupid because the use by date on the hot cross buns that come out in December are way before Easter. They're like 2 months before Easter. The hot cross buns are going to be expired. They're going to be fossilized by the time Easter arrives. Carol says, no going mad with Easter decor trying to cash in like they did at Halloween. Yeah, they are. Friday says it was not a fun day seeing a doctor, and I was really hopeful. Okay, Friday, I hope everything's kind of okay. And if it's not, I'm sending a hug. Yeah, so all that Easter shit, crazy. We because we do have an ethnically diverse cohort where I live. We're getting a lot of the Ramadan foods. We're getting a lot of dates, and we're getting a lot of kind of Middle Eastern drinks in the supermarkets. We got a lot of stuff for Chinese New Year as well. Gong hei fat choy to anybody who celebrates. But I kind of like that. I like that diversity and not just getting hot cross buns and bunnies on a cross kind of thing. But yeah, and I love living in an ethnically diverse area because we do get the Ramadan stuff and Ramadan Mubarak to anybody who's celebrating that as well. It's really awkward for our Muslim friends here in Australia because from sunrise to sunset at the moment, it can be anywhere up to like 15, 16 hours. And well, yeah, how about that? So it's a very long Ramadan fast for the Australian Muslim community. And that's difficult. Wintertime, they shit it in. Summertime, it becomes a real problem for many people. Friday says, it's one of the best things about living in Birmingham, how diverse the population is. Absolutely. I love that. I lived in an ethnically diverse place pretty much all my life. As a kid, there are a lot of migrants from the post-war migration living in our areas, and I heard some egregious things from old white ladies about them. But I love living in ethnically diverse areas. I think the inclusiveness and the fact you get more festivals and you get better food. I remember when I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of choice in food. The Chinese restaurants were pretty good where I lived. There's a place called the Ginger Jar, which we went to for special occasions that did fairly accurate Chinese food, and it really hit. And I miss it. I miss like having the noodles and the prawns and all that cool stuff from that one place. If I could travel back in time, I would go there just to have the Chinese food there again. Carol says, been a few Chinese New Year bits around, but not much for Ramadan yet locally. Eventually they catch up. Yeah. We had some problems with right-wing nutjob political parties around Ramadan this year. Pauline Hanson, our worst offender in that, who's got her own party called One Nation, goes on the media and says there are no good Muslims. And she's she's in Parliament. She's a senator. for the country. And she got smacked down rightly for that, but ah, those people are just the worst. Here we go, instant magic trick. Yeah, but we got a whole bunch of stuff together all at once. We got Lent, which is okay for people to celebrate it. I don't understand it, but fair enough. We got Chinese New Year and we got Ramadan all coming around the same time, which, is part of that strength. I think diversity is strength. So we've talked about my Crab Tuesday. We've got a few other things to talk about too. Have a list. Does anybody else want to see this movie they're making at the moment? It's called Jason Statham Stole My Bicycle, and it stars Jason Statham. They're making it at the moment. Just on the title, I will go and see a movie called Jason Statham Stole My Bicycle, because if it's a combination of a bicycle thieves and it's a combination of that and a Jason Statham movie, I'm there for that. D-Lee says, is that a Derek Flint gadget? No. Hi, Peter. How you doing? See, simple, Peter. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Is my magic book here? Can I reach my magic book? Hold that thought. Friday says, is that the sequel to Being John Malkovich? I'm pretty sure it isn't. I can reach my magic book. Penn and Teller's magic book. Cruel tricks for dear friends. I'll see if I can do this right. See, there it is there. There's all the pages. It's really dense type and really hard to read. But not that hard to read. Can be hard to read. Doesn't have to be hard to read. That's my magic book, which I picked up in Seattle in 1998. But yeah. So they're your magic tricks. That's all you're getting. Keep them wanting more. Four-star says, good trick. Yeah, it is. And the thing is, anybody can do it. It's the simplest magic trick in the world. Imprint sent me some stuff. I'm going to do a review of the movie they sent me in a future video, probably on the Wednesday video. But they also sent me something else, which is very cool. They've just released their 500th movie release under the Imprint label, which is great. But they also sent me an extra, which is this. Now, they didn't pay me for this, but inside, got a little imprint plug, which I can use to hang up if I'm reviewing imprint movies. It's made out of tin, or metal at least. But that was a nice little gift, and I wasn't even expecting the movie, which was kind of cool. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can look it up if you want to, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to save it for the video. And it's a movie that a lot of people on this channel will like. It's not like an obscure rom-com from the 1970s. Oh, by the way, super chats get the fart gun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Jason Statham Stole My Bicycle, because it's going to be an interesting pivot for Statham to do a comedy based on his own persona. I kind of like that idea. Dick says, cool gift from him. Yeah, it was. They're really nice, and they've sent me so much good stuff lately to review, and I'm glad that they have. They've got some really good upcoming stuff. They've got another Tales of Adventure. They've got a Western box set, which is really, really cool, coming up. Franny says that Statham was hilarious in Spy. He was. It's a pity that Melissa McCarthy was in it. I don't find her funny at all. I think she's incredibly unnuanced as a comedian. Dealey says, Imprint sent you a plaque with an imprint. Umbrella knows what they got to send you now. Yeah, the umbrellas of Cherbourg. Or an umbrella would be really cool. It'd be a bit hard to show on camera. But if Umbrella want to send me an umbrella, I wouldn't be adverse to that. And I'm kind of glad I'm not getting things from Madman Films for that reason. Or vinegar, or vinegar syndrome. I wonder what vinegar syndrome would send you. Some balsamic. But yeah, it was kind. I wasn't expecting it. I got the previous tranche of stuff from Imprint, and this was sent separately, which is kind of unusual. But they sent it to me, and I went, "Great, thank you." Uh, Occasionally, they send me things I'm not expecting, and I really like that. It's got a little feel of that Christmas morning stuff about it. But Imprint have been doing great. I've got a question for you. We're going to dip into the question, even though we're only 20 minutes into the live stream. And it's a question that came up on some of the news media I was reading. Movie-related question. What length is too long for a movie? Because there are people bitching and moaning about the length of some films. And I'll tell you what I think after I get your opinions. But, I mean, some movies are very long at the moment, and people are having trouble with that, mostly for bladder purposes. I mean, I'm still at the stage where if I don't take my diuretic medication, I can sit through a 3.5 hour movie with no problem at all. But how long is too long for a film to be? Dick says, but don't open the umbrella indoors if they send you one. Why not? Friday says, I've got some chocolate and vanilla balsamic vinegar. It's fantastic. What do you use it on? It seems an odd combination, Friday. So what do you use that on? Forsyth says 3 hours is too much, 2 hours is more like it. It's reasonable. Dick says, because it's said to be bad luck. There's no such thing as bad luck. I mean, life throws some good things and bad things at you. But I'm not going to live my life based on superstitions, which is probably why I'm an atheist. But I don't truck with that. Whatever life throws at me, I will find a way to deal with. I'm not going to curtail or alter the way I live my life based on something somebody thought 400 years ago. It's not bad luck, Carol. It's superstition. It's mumbo jumbo. B. Garvey says, I just got the 4K Ben-Hur. It was 3 hours, 40 minutes. Had to break up over 2 nights. By the way, the restoration is amazing. That's why they had intermissions in the cinemas. And you go out and take a leak. Some people would sneak out for a quick fag, cigarette, not anything else, or to get another choc top ice cream. But I'm not adverse to intermissions being included in long movies. Carol says any film over 2.5 hours is too bloody long. Yeah, Friday's right. There is an intermission. Peter says 3.5 hours is too long unless there's a good old-fashioned intermission in there. Yeah, I think intermissions work, and they're usually somewhere in the film. There's a natural intermission point where things get bad for the protagonist, and you've got that kind of plot beat just sitting there waiting for an intermission. I think that's valid. Yeah, you get an intermission theme in a lot of movies. Yeah, you do get that leitmotif playing in the intermissions, and you get the big thing saying intermission and the curtains close, and then they open again at the end of the intermission. Forsyth says, here the Chinese people prefer long movies. Is that true? I don't know, but I know that a lot of Indian movies are very long. Bollywood films can go on for 3-4 hours, and there are tons and tons of musical breaks in them. Abel Gaunt's Napoleon is 5 hours, 40 minutes, not including the 2 intervals, but I enjoyed it twice, says Dealey. Yeah. Dick says, love long films providing it tells a good story and produce well. Never minded long films even as a kid. Good point. I'll give you my take on it. I think films have a natural length. I think based on the script and based on the plot beats and based on the incredible amount of information that movie studios have about audiences, a movie has a natural length. I think a long movie should be all thriller, no filler, and if the plot demands it be that long, and if the story, which has to be a valid one, is told over a long time, throw in an intermission if you have to. But I've got no problem with the length of a film at all. I think the problem is when you get a long film where the plot isn't being moved along enough within that runtime, and there are uh, lots of slower times. And yeah, I don't mind a change of pace, but there are long movies that just don't earn the length. That's the only condition I've got on that. Apart from that, go for it. If you got a 24-hour movie, yeah, give me a pillow and I'll watch it. Siren says it depends on the movie. Absolutely. Carol says the only film I've been to that had an intermission in the cinema was X-Men First Class. Small local cinema did it. People snacks available. Very cool. Yeah. That reminds me of something, but I'll talk about Friday said first. Friday says I would love to have seen David Lynch's original cut of Dune, which was 3.5 hours. Yeah, Dune was such an odd choice for Lynch, wasn't it? But I remember when I was a kid, they used to have ladies who'd go into the cinema just before the movie, and they'd have little pots of ice cream you could buy. And they'd take this kind of big esky full of ice creams, take them down the front of the cinema, and you buy yourself an ice cream with a little wooden spoon to eat it with. And they'd bring it into the cinema, so you didn't have to go out of the cinema if you didn't want to. That was a nice memory. Yeah, Francis, love those pots of ice cream. Yeah, they were pretty good. They were vanilla ice cream, but they were very creamy and rich and tasty, unlike a lot of the vanilla ice creams we get now. The other thing I like to do with vanilla ice cream, just while we're on the subject, get a little bit of Frangelico. Look, I shot a Frangelico into a bowl of vanilla ice cream. That works. Dick says we had them too when I was a kid and love those trays and the ice creams. Yeah. Big Garber said, just listen to the audio book of Project Hail Mary. It was 16 hours. Interesting to see how they get it into a 2 hour, 36-minute film. I'm looking forward to Project Hail Mary. I mean, I'm a science fiction wonk, as we know, and I will review it for Science Fiction Saturday. But it looks great. And I think that Baby Goose is the kind of actor who can carry the movie pretty well, because once he gets into space, a lot of it is a single-hander talking to a CGI thing. But I'm going to give it a go. I didn't mind The Martian. Andy Weir writes very cinematically in his novels. So I'm going to be seeing Project Hail Mary when it comes out. Carol says, what's Frangelico? It's a hazelnut liqueur from Italy. Really nice. Sweet, but not too sweet, and very complex flavor. You get a whole bunch of different Frangelicos. There's an Italian supermarket over in the north of Melbourne, which has like 15 different kinds of hazelnut liqueurs for sale there. And I always like going there and going, okay, I'm not going to try the cheapest one. I'm going to try the second cheapest one. But Frangelico is great. Just and you can use it you can just have a shot of it if you're in the mood for it. You can mix it with other things that don't change the flavor too much, or you can put it into ice creams or zabaglionis or something like that. Carol can't have Frangelico because of a nut allergy. Siren 858 is looking forward to Project Hail Mary. Yeah, absolutely. Looks like it's fun, and the alien really works. I like the alien design in that. It's based very much on Andy Weir's design, but manifesting that in on the screen is not a simple task, because the way the aliens' joints work are very different than human ones. And I might try to get it on Blu-ray or 4K when it inevitably happens, because I want the extras to just see how they designed the alien and did all the other stuff in there, because it is an effects-heavy movie, but it's one of those movies where the effects are going to be serving the story. And I like that. I don't like special effects for the sake of special effects. They've always got to serve the story, and I'm very big on that. But Yeah, liqueurs poured over ice cream are always nice. Doesn't matter, Carol, what kind of liqueur, but if you find a nice liqueur and you just drizzle it over the ice cream instead of just using some kind of sugar syrup, it works. You can have your dessert and get a little bit smashed as well at the same time. Also, Frangelico, for those of you who can, goes good in an espresso. You just mix an espresso with a shot of Frangelico, and that hits as well because the hazelnut flavor works well with the coffee flavor. They should have that in movies. They should have like a mixologist, and you go into the movies and you go, "Yeah, I want to have a mojito with my movie," and they make you a mojito on the spot and give it to you. Siren says Frangelico is lovely, but can be hard to find in Hobart sometimes. Yeah, I can appreciate that, Deb. Absolutely, it's you got to look around. You should try getting it from Amazon. They might sell it to you. Forsyth says Project Hail Mary opens here on March 20th. Looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. Probably opening here about the same time, I think. And I'll pop in with my little card and go and see it and then review it for the channel because I know that'll do well on the channel. It's the kind of thing that a lot of the people here really like. Big Go says, I always like some chambord over my ice cream. Haven't had that for a very long time, but I know it's a good liqueur. You can pick any number of them. I mean, you could even do creme de menthe, which would hit for ice cream. Here in Australia, they have a thing called a spider, which is where you get a soft drink like Coca-Cola or Fanta or something like that, and you put it into a tall glass and you put a scoop of ice cream on it, and it fizzes up and goes all fizzy. But a spider is a really nice drink to have too. Very, very sweet, of course, by the time you finish putting soft drink in with ice cream. But particularly lime one, there's a thing called lime spiders where you get a lime soft drink and put ice cream on it. There was actually a band called Lime Spiders, and everybody liked it because of the nostalgia of having a lime spider. But yeah, liqueurs over ice cream just works. And if anybody is refraining from alcohol, I'm sorry if this is triggering you at all. Let's see what I got on the list. So yeah, Deb went to see Send Help on the weekend. Loved it. Yeah, I want to see that, but I haven't had a chance to yet because I do like myself a bit of Sam Raimi. Friday says picked up a couple of DVDs today. Great one good, one bad. Balancing all things. Metropolis from Eureka and the booklet and Zombie Strippers. I don't mind Zombie Strippers. Zombie Strippers is a bit of fun. Robert England's in it. Yeah, it's always good finding. I've actually got a little bit of a haul. Thanks for the reminder, Friday. I've got a little bit of a haul. Nothing much, but I've got a little bit. Carol says they have spiders here, but it's called an ice cream float. It's much easier calling it a spider. Friday's like Chambord as well. They should be a sponsor of the channel and send me some booze. Hi, Dog's Dad. How's it going in California? In the fascist states of America? Shouldn't have said that, but I did. Let's do the haul. And I've just dropped the fart gun because it's not being used. Small haul from the op shops. Let's make some room on the desk. Move some things around, including empty coffee cups. Dick says, love a haul. I know you do, Dick. That Thin Man haul you got was really useful. I want to get the Thin Man movies, so I'm going to keep my eyes open. Okay, this is a small haul. These were all $1 and $2, maybe a little more for some of them, but not bad. I got Jean-Pierre Junot movie for $1 that I didn't have, called Micmacs. This one was a little bit unusual. I found it down at my local Rotary store, op shop, thrift store. Kind of cool. I remember seeing this before, but it's got all the usual actors from Jean-Pierre Junot movies. Nice, silly little comedy. It helps to be a little odd to get even. So I'm going to rewatch that one soon because a little bit of silly French cinema doesn't hurt. And it says violence and sexual references. So you know it's good. Carol said, went to an indoor boots fair this morning. Nothing of interest, but got some books from the village library. Oh, cool. Lee says, Micmacs is good. I have it on DVD and saw it at the festival years ago. Yep, it's a good quality one too. So I picked that up for $1. Also got this, and I've actually watched this a couple of days ago, and it's silly fun. Did I get this for $1? Yeah, I got this for $1. Yeah. National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon with Emilio Estevez and Samuel L. Jackson. The number of people who are doing cameos in this movie is crazy. There's all sorts of people just pop up for one scene. It's taken the piss out of Lethal Weapon, of course. A series I never particularly liked because it's obvious. I mean, I like a lot of 1970s and 1980s action films. But the Lethal Weapon ones just didn't work for me because they're a little too much. And the buddy cop thing between Danny Glover and Mel Gibson just never worked for me. Deb liked Micmacs as well, and so did D. Lee. So I watched Loaded Weapon, and it's fun. It's not as good as the Zucker Abrams Zucker movie, but it's fun. It's interesting. It doesn't go quite hard enough on the comedy in the way that the Zucker Abrams Zucker stuff did. And I really love Kentucky Fried Movie. But, yeah, peel the $1 sticker off. But it was a little bit of fun. And it's got Tim Curry in it as one of the villains. So why wouldn't you watch a movie with Tim Curry in it? So I watched that one. And then I got these 2 box sets of 3 classic English films per box set. How much did I pay for these? $3, so $1 a movie. I've got this one, which has got Appointment with Venus, The Flemish Farm, and The Way Ahead, which are all approximately World War II dramas. And I got this for $3 at, where was it? At one of the charity stores in Werribee. I just went local. And the cool thing is, each movie has got its own disc. They're not sharing a disc. So I got those for $3, which was a nice bargain. I actually had a previous copy of this one, and then I opened it and only had one movie in it. And so I threw it back into the pot of op shop stuff. But I'm glad I got a full copy of that. And then I got this one, which is from the same mob. Morning Departure, In Which We Serve, which has got Noel Coward in it. And We Dive at Dawn. 3 World War II movies. A little bit hard to find here. These were what we used to call Father's Day movies because they'd come out in the shops on Father's Day. All the war films would suddenly be in the shops. Back when shops used to sell DVDs and Blu-rays. And again, each one of them has got their own disc. So $3 for each of these. Nice haul. $1 a movie is the sweet spot, I think, for op shop hauls. Don't often get them below that in Australia, but I'm happy to pay $1 to $2 per movie. If it's a Blu-ray, I'll pay $3 or $4. But either way, not a bad haul. I haven't finished the haul yet, but not a bad one. Did Howard write In Which We Serve? I think he did, Franny. Peter says, Silver Screen Collection is excellent. I love Appointment with Venus. Yeah. I've also got one with all Peter Finch movies. I've got a couple of them up in the back room. And one of them is all Peter Finch movies. And that one works well. No Love for Johnny is one of the films. So I kind of dig that. I don't know whether I've done this one before. I had one of the movies, but getting the double movie box set was still worth it. What did I pay for this? $2, so $1 per movie. Dead Reckoning and In a Lonely Place. Nicholas Ray's In a Lonely Place. Both Bogart movies. In a Lonely Place I've got to rewatch because I love it. It's just so dark and the character Dixon Steele that Humphrey Bogart plays in A Lonely Place is such a self-loathing and self-defeating character. I really like the fact that in his later career, Bogart did some interesting stuff. Sorry, I'm just going to open this so I can check if it's 2 discs because it's got sticky tape closing it. Yeah, individual discs. So it is one of Bogart's best movies for sale, absolutely. Anyone ever done a Somerset Maugham box set? I don't know. There were those really interesting ones that they did in the 40s and 50s, where it was a couple of, like 3 or 4 Somerset Maugham short stories that were done as anthology films. And one of them, he actually introduced the stories. Just had to get that out of there. Remember these things where they'd lock the movies in the store so you couldn't nick them? I just had to pull that out of this. Deb says to Franny, yes, Coward did write In Which We Serve. But yeah, a Somerset Maugham box set to be interesting. Quartet's a fantastic block of 4 of his, says Franny. Yeah, Quartet's one of the ones I'm thinking of. Hey, Doug, how you doing? Sal's not here. Sal's sleeping at the moment. She's got a dental appointment I've got to take her to later. So she's having a bit of a snooze. Last thing I got is I didn't have a copy of this for some reason. Road to Perdition. I did not have a copy of this in the collection. And yes, I could have forked out and bought a Blu-ray of it. But this is good enough. And again, this one was $2. So I paid a premium for it. Pretty good. It's got one of those little things to stop you nicking the film in there as well. So I'll have to get rid of that at some stage. But yeah, Road to Perdition. Who directed that? Sam Mendes. Haven't watched that for a very long time, so I should rewatch that one as well. Peter says, both the Bogart films are great. Elizabeth Scott is gorgeous in Dead Reckoning. Yeah. And what I really want to rewatch from the oeuvre of Humphrey Bogart is I want to rewatch The Cane Mutiny. I'm going to have to find a copy of that somehow and rewatch The Cane Mutiny because the ensemble works well. Even people like Fred McMurray, who's usually a little bit vanilla as an actor, does pretty well in that. It's got Jose Ferrer in it as well. Great ensemble cast and a good story. So I'm going to rewatch The Cane Mutiny at some stage. But let's see. I went out yesterday. I actually did a vlog for the other channel, the Terry Travels channel. Captain Lasers just watched The Cane Mutiny. Bogart was in top game even until the end. Yeah, he was. The weird thing is, I have this thing with Bogart, as I have with a number of other actors, because Bogart died of lung cancer. And every time I see Humphrey Bogart smoking in a movie, I've got this weird thing in the back of my mind that says, is that the cigarette that gave him cancer? Totally screws with my perception of some Bogart movies. But Cane Mutiny. Bogart being a character actor, which essentially he was. Yes, he was a big movie star with Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon and that. But he came from a place of being a character actor. And that served him well as he aged out of romantic roles. I think the last romantic role he did was Sabrina, where him and Audrey Hepburn get together. And that didn't sit well. But he really was a character actor who just happened to be a star at some stage. And that's kind of interesting. B. Garvey says, Jose Ferrer's performance in The Cane Mutiny was outstanding. I love him in Cyrano de Bergerac, which is my favorite Jose Ferrer role. But he did a whole bunch of really interesting stuff in the 50s, like The Shrike and The Great Man. There's a few different Jose Ferrer movies that really hit well with drama, as a drama. Franny says, has Sabrina not aged well, or was it always creepy? I think Bogart was miscast, and there's almost kind of an avuncular vibe between him and Audrey Hepburn that doesn't sit well. The remake's not much better, but they're both very watchable actors. But you kind of go, no, they don't want to get together. Yes, dump William Holden. You don't have to find another guy. I got that kind of vibe last time I watched Sabrina. I don't even know if I got a copy of it. Dealey says, Carol wrote in which we serve as a bit of a tribute to his great friend Louis Mountbatten. Yeah, Louis Mountbatten, unfortunately, was a pedophile, so Coward probably didn't know that. Doug says, it still blows my mind that Bogart wasn't the original choice for Casablanca and that nobody expected much of the movie. Casablanca was lightning in a bottle. Yeah, they were going to go with George Raft, who was, again, another vanilla actor. They didn't have it into the script, but it hit, and I think this is part of the magic. It hit at a moment in history where it was perfect for the time. All of the refugee actors singing La Marseillaise and drowning out the Germans, who themselves were played mostly by refugee actors. There's a power to that moment that I don't know. There's another movie that has quite the same kind of power to it as that moment in Casablanca when they sing La Marseillaise. It's just magical. Carol says, The African Queen's probably my favorite Bogart movie. Yeah, it is. That's great. I've got it on 4K. I did pick up the 4K of that. And people wouldn't have expected Bogart and Katharine Hepburn to have the chemistry the two of them have together. But they do. They're really solidly magical in that film. And supporting cast is good. Robert Morley playing the brother who's dying basically at the start of the film. And but for the most part, it's a two-hander. And yeah, it is one of John Huston's great mid-career films. But the Marseillaise scene in Casablanca is fantastic. And I always feel a lot of sympathy for all of those Jewish actors who came over from Europe of necessity in the 1930s mostly, who ended up playing Nazis. I mean, playing the thing you feared and your worst enemy to make a living is just an odd thing, but probably better than having real Nazis play the role, I suppose. Some of the real fascists were actually the people playing protagonists in movies at the time. There were a lot of very right-wing actors with prominent careers in the 40s. Let's see, what else have I got on my list here? Yeah. Sorry, I got something in my throat. Let me clear it up. That's a bit better, I think. Darren Aronofsky, who's a pretty prominent director. He did Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Fountain, The Wrestler, Black Swan, The Whale. He's making this weird series of short films, which he uses AI to tell the story of 1776 in America because it's 250th anniversary of them chucking out the Brits. And the AI sucks. Then these short films where he's doing a day in 1776 and what happened historically on particular days in 1776. The AI slop is horrible. But the amusing thing about it is the AI slop was so horrible, they had to get real actors to dub the dialogue in because AI isn't at the stage where they could get a good line reading of the dialogue. But I've watched one of those a day in 1776 things that Aronofsky did, and it's embarrassingly bad. It's taking all the riz out of his career. Really horrible stuff and really lazy stuff. I understand the argument of people saying AI is a tool to use to tell stories, but I think even CG, which is different from AI, CG is more at the service of the creative people, and it's used to fill out a story. AI just doesn't look right. You're getting rid of actors, you're getting rid of all the experience of actors, and you're replacing it with things. But yeah, it just doesn't sit right, doesn't look right, and doesn't feel right, which I think is the most important thing. And yes, they're going to try to make it look more realistic, and we've got to be aware of that. But I love good acting, and you don't get it in this particular medium. Uh, Dealey says, I read that Bogart got a number of his most famous roles because George Ruff turned them down. Yeah, he did. George Ruff was just an idiot, very much in line with a bunch of criminals as well. Captain Laser says, director of Casablanca was Michael Curtiz. I know. He directed 2 movies in 1941. The other film was a war drama called Captain in the Clouds. Have I seen it? I've seen it a long time ago, but I haven't watched it within recent memory. Franny says, I missed Casablanca, but I saw the science fiction remake, Barbed Wire. Yeah, Barbed Wire is a direct remake of Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart replaced by Pamela Anderson. Dick says, yeah, I remember that David Soul Casablanca TV series. Yeah, that was bad. Hi, Adam. How you doing? Yeah, the Casablanca TV series was just not good at all. I think it was milking the IP rather than doing anything interesting with it. And the scripts didn't have what it took to move the story forward. Dodge Morgan says, noticed 1 or 2 AI TV adverts creeping on TV. You usually holiday ads and just too perfect and slick. Yeah, they are. I get a lot of them on YouTube, and you can tell by the line reading of the voices and the creepiness and the kind of uncanny valley of the people on screen. And usually they're selling insurance or AI integration into your business, and they just look horrible. And I use that thing to block the ad, that little option you've got on YouTube to block the ads. I block those ads. I want to see an ad where somebody got paid for doing a good job on them. Adam says, who's the most natural actor you love? We lost Javale, but I put him on level with Spencer Tracy. Yeah, Robert Javale was very good. I tell you who I like at the moment, and in an odd context, Paul Giamatti is doing some fantastic acting on Starfleet Academy, the TV series, the new Star Trek one, playing Nus Braka, the main villain of the series. He is really pulling out all stops, and his villain is a psychopath, and he's really, really in love with the game of beating Star Trek, and particularly beating the captain, played by Holly Hunter. There's just a fantastic acting role there. And yes, the script is good, and the line delivery given to him is good. But Paul Giamatti is doing incredible work in that series. And if you watch it for no other reason, it's to watch Holly Hunter and Tig Notaro and um, and Paul Giamatti in that series. Yes, the young people are great and they're up and comers, and they do know their chops with actors. But the mature, experienced actors are hitting emotional beats I've never seen in a Star Trek anything. Deb says Paul Giamatti has always been true. Yeah. Adam says, yeah, The Holdovers is the last great film I saw in the cinemas. Giamatti is so good in that. Yeah, and Giamatti's a Star Trek fan. Like, he's been a Star Trek fan forever. And he really adds to the pantheon of villains in Star Trek. People are comparing him to Khan Noonien Singh. His Nusbraka is just an incredibly nuanced and terrifying villain who is evil in the most interesting way. And you don't necessarily expect that level of excellence in a Star Trek series, but we get it. And the production values in Starfleet Academy are fantastic too. The sets, virtual and standing, are great. The special effects are used very well. It's just, yeah, Dealey says, Jamadi's an actor's actor. Absolutely. Doug says, Robert Duvall's brilliant as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird. He never says a word and is seen briefly, but shines. Yeah. And that's the thing. I love character actors, male or female. Holly Hunter's a character actor, and she gives us a very different Starfleet captain in Starfleet Academy. There are just, I mean, when you see the art and the kind of power that good character actors give to a role, even if it's a small role in a movie, there are some that just don't play a stereotype. They really dig in and give us something good and fascinating in a role. And I love that. I respect the integrity of that, and I respect the professionalism of that. But I also love the fact that they've got this toolkit that enables them to do it. Adam says, "What do I think of Duvall's performance in Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Was he in Invasion of the Body Snatchers? I don't remember him in that." B. Garvey says, "I enjoyed Tig Notaro for the film Inner World. Tig Notaro did the best comedy set of the last 50 years. She did a set on stage just after she was diagnosed with breast cancer and did a set about it, and it was incredibly funny and human. If you can find that comedy set she did a tight 5 or so immediately after being diagnosed with breast cancer. And it's incredible. It's like you did something there that I've never seen before. Enormous, immense, infinite respect for Tig Notaro. Duvall in Apocalypse Now is key to its success. I really like um, Robert Duvall in The Killer Elite, the Sam Peckinpah movie with James Caan, where they're playing buddies and he betrays James Caan's character. There's a real interesting role there with Robert Duvall and James Caan riffing off each other. Adam says, "Yep, he's the priest on a swing in Invasion of Body Snatchers." Is that the 1955 one, the 1978 one? B. Garvey says, "Just watched Bullet last night. Duvall's 5 minutes as a taxi driver was really good for a small part." Yeah, there are no small roles. I really believe that. It's a cliche, but I believe that small roles can be brilliantly done. Dodge Morgan says, "Gene Hackman was also a great character actor. Died last year, though he was great in Mississippi Burning and Unforgiven, and in enormously and menacingly other movies too." Hackman was, again, a character actor. Up until French Connection, he was like 7th guy in the cast list. Adam says the Kaufman one. Okay, cool. I haven't seen that one for a long time. I've got the 4K that Imprint put out, but I haven't rewatched it lately. I know how it ends. But yeah, character actors are just so much. I mean, it's like watching Fred Astaire dance, watching a character actor like Giamatti or Hackman or Duvall or any of those people, or Holly Hunter for that matter. Just watching the expertise is the joy of it. Dogstad says, "Why are the actors who have died are the ones we really remember? Today's actors are just forgettable." No, they're not. They just haven't had the long careers of more mature actors. I think Jacob Elordi's a good actor. I think Margot Robbie's a good actor, just to use 2 local examples. I think there are any number of them. Chalamet's got a lot of potential and is going to build a body of work. Leonardo DiCaprio is becoming a really great actor as well. Brad Pitt is doing some interesting work. Chiwetel Ejiofor and Idris Elba any number of good actors today, and they're not forgettable. They're just where's that quote? I've got this really interesting quote, because we do get this in the channel a lot, and I'm not pissing on anybody. There's a big nostalgia thing where people are nostalgic for the past in cinema. And Zadie Smith, the novelist, said, "Time travel is a discretionary art, a pleasure trip for some, and a horror story for others." I think that's an interesting take on nostalgia. It can be both, and I think dismissing modern actors is disrespectful, because there are actors working at the moment who are as good as classic actors, but because we don't have a nostalgia for them, some people find it difficult to recognize that excellence. Captain Lay says Daniel Day-Lewis is a solid actor too. Yeah, Ralph Fiennes as well. Ralph Fiennes is doing serious roles in comedies and dramas, and the Bone Temple. Great character actors. Adam says favorite Hackman movie might be Scarecrow. Haven't seen Scarecrow in a long time. There are highs and lows in all forms of art. Absolutely, I agree. I kind of like Hackman in the Poseidon Adventure, where he plays the ex-priest arguing against God and screaming at God, and rightly so, because he's in a shit situation. But yeah, it's the thing is, there are some actors who have an immense toolkit, and then if they get a minor role that they're doing for the money, they'll only bring the Phillips head screwdriver out of that toolkit. And there are other actors who will bring the whole toolkit and all the tools and know how to use them to tinker with a movie to make it better. And a lot of respect for people who get small movies, and not necessarily the best movies in the world, not the big ones, not the expensive ones, not the ones where there are a lot of resources, and yet they'll still bring their full toolkit to that movie. I love that. It's immeasurably precious to me. Yeah, Adam, he practically lifts the ship out of the water. Hackman does a great job in that. Hi, Zammy Adams. Scarecrow's amazing. Yeah, it is. The thing is, I kind of want to see new movies that are good too. For the channel, I can just do nostalgic stuff, and the channel will be very successful. But I don't want to do that. I want to do new and old stuff. I want to explore other cultures and other cultures' movies, and just being nostalgic for stuff I saw in the 70s. And I saw a lot of stuff in the 70s. Feels a little masturbatory. I don't want to do that all the time. Nice now and then, but I don't want to do that all the time. I want to explore new things. I want to find things I didn't know about. I want to be delighted by things I've never seen. Like when I saw Sinners last year. That movie blew the top of my tiny head off. I shouldn't have said tiny head there because it sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. Sinners blew my brains out in the best way. And so I want more movies I haven't seen before that do that. And I just don't want to tickle the nostalgia nerve all the time. Yeah, Captain Laser, Uncommon Valor. It is a cheesy movie, but Hackman gives full value in that. D. Lee says a minor role is an opportunity for an actor to shine if they go for it. Yeah, just getting out that toolkit and showing what you can do with it. Dogstad says Giamatti's the main focus for me. He really chews up any scene. The rest of the cast is just filler. Sorry, Holly Hunter. I disagree, but that's okay. Dodge Morgan says one of Duval's strangest roles is THS 1138. Whatever happened to that director? But stood out from all the silver robot cops talking around. I think it was a badly scripted movie because it just didn't work for me. I mean, yeah, I understood what Lucas was going for with it. But even in that totalitarian repressed society, your protagonist has to have something that makes them extraordinary, some quality of character. And I don't think he delivered that very well. Deb says, I think the term character actor doesn't quite cut it anymore. I believe all actors play characters, some far better than others. If there's a better term, I'm happy to embrace it, Deb. But when I say character actor, people know what I'm talking about. But I'm happy to accept another term if you find one. Adam says, Hackman apparently was difficult to work with, but I think it was the way he had to operate. Yeah, he basically he did his apprenticeship as basically a supporting actor in for all of the 1960s. If you see Gene Hackman in a 1960s movie like Banning with Robert Wagner, his drunk character Tommy Delgado in that is a really good character role that, in a sense, is the linchpin for the plot of that movie, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies, and probably is my favorite sports movie. And Hackman in that, playing older than his age, he's playing like 10, 15 years older than he was, really gives that exactly what it needs without trying to blow the other actors out of the water. Low key, he delivers a character who is an important component of the plot in a good way. Dealey says character actors play the characters as opposed to other actors who play the same persona, whatever role. I mean, there were character actors, to be fair. There were character actors who played a type and did it very well, mostly in studio films of a certain age where they were hired to be a certain type. Edward Everett Horton and Cutler Segal and people like that played a certain type reliably, and you could slot them into various movies, and you knew what you were going to get with them. But I don't mind that kind of acting because it was part of the factory that Hollywood was at the time. Ferrani says, watched a YouTube video the other day, the cooking channel, but Sinners came up and they thought it was a remake of Interview with a Vampire because of the time shift. Yeah, those people needed to have their hand held onto a hot griddle. Yeah, if you're going to say something stupid, don't step out of your wheelhouse. And they thought it was good, but Interview with a Vampire was a better movie. What were they watching? Interview with a Vampire isn't a great film. And Tom Cruise egregiously miscast. Brad Pitt slightly less so. Yeah. Sinners is in so many ways superior to that. And Ryan Coogler is probably one of the great auteur directors who are working at the moment. Adam says, lead actors are often less interesting. Point of view roles need to do less than the character actors do the business. I think sometimes lead actors are learning their craft and they got there because they're pretty. And I understand that. I don't necessarily respect it. But I think character actors build the world more than the lead actors do. They build the world in which the lead actors do what they do. And the quality of that world depends on the character actors. George Morgan says, the way Duval delivers, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, was chilling to the bone. Yeah, it was that madness of a certain kind of military leader. George Patton was that kind of mad. And Duval delivered that. Deb says, I'm thinking here particularly of ensemble pieces like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the Old Men especially. It's littered with A-list actors who all support each other. All are actors doing fine work, yeah. And Oldman's one of those character actors I love. I love him in Slow Horses, but I also like him doing other roles as well. I mean, I'm a little pissed off with him for accepting a knighthood because I don't like people getting gongs from oligarchs, essentially. And I've got a problem with that to a certain extent. And I've got a problem with people saying, Sir Gary Oldman. I'd never use honorifics on the channel, you might have noticed, because I don't believe in them. But yeah, Doug says, I may be wrong, but I vaguely remember Hackman getting his name removed from the credits of a movie he made. I'm not sure about that, Doug. You might want to dive into that one and find it for me. Deb says, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think about dropping the term character. Just something to think about. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give it some thought, Deb, because I understand what you're saying, but it's a convenient term for describing a certain actor. Dog says, okay, I digress on memorable actors of the past. I guess it's the forgettable movies of the present. Yeah, I think there's just such a hunger for content. We've got so many streaming services at different tiers of things. And there's just so much being put out because the gate to entry is smaller than it used to be. You can make, I mean, some of the 28 Days Later movies were made on iPhones. And when we get to that stage of technical availability, there are going to be a lot of movies. There are going to be tons and tons and tons of movies coming out because streaming services want as many movies as they can get at a certain price point. So we're going to get a lot of that stuff. But on the other hand, it's a good training ground for a lot of people, not only actors, but technical people as well. Peter says Peter Lorre was his quintessential character actor. Any film role he was in, you knew what to expect. Yeah, I think Hollywood kind of pigeonholed him, and he did have a narcotics addiction, which made him less reliable than he might have been otherwise. But they wanted Peter Lorre for the creepy roles. They wanted Joel Cairo without the gayness, and that limited the roles he got. Though he did do some interesting things like, going from M onwards, he was a great character. It would have been nice to, in his later career, see more diverse roles given to Peter Lorre. Deb says, by the way, Guardians just reported that One Battle After Another has taken out the Best Movie BAFTA. Good. I think it's a fantastic movie. From a technical and from an ideological point of view, and all the actors are on point in that movie, and it's not predictable where it goes. And I love that. We've all seen tons and tons of movies. If all of the movies we ever saw were put on DVD and dropped on our heads, we'd be dead. I like the fact that One Battle After Another didn't go anywhere I thought it was going to go. I love the fact that it tricked me out in the same way Sinners did to a certain extent, and the same way a number of other movies these days do. I really like One Battle After Another. Hi, Graham. Did anyone watch Lonesome Dove? Yeah, I did when it first came out, but I haven't watched it lately. Doug says, just checked, it was a firm with Tom Cruise. His name was not on the post. Hackman's name was not on the poster. It was a billing dispute. He wanted the name above the title with Cruise. Fair enough. And how many people watched the film lately? So I think Hackman made the right choice there. Deb says to Dogstar, I think there are some incredibly good movies around currently. And of course, some memorable titles from the past. Yeah. And that's it. Making those choices about, do I watch an old movie or a new one? I like rewatching old films because I'm a different person than I was when I watched them previously, and I maybe reevaluate them. But I'm still on the front of the curve. I'm not going to. Nostalgia is a trap, and yeah, you can kind of just imagine it as a mousetrap. You got two choices with nostalgia. You can smack your hand on it and get hurt, and go, "Yeah, I remember that hurt from the last time I did this." Or you can throw champagne corks at it and just watch it snap. I tend to be a throw the champagne corks at the mousetrap kind of guy. But I want to see good movies, new ones. I want to be surprised and delighted And yes, at times disappointed by new films. It's always going to happen. But I love the fact that they're an unknown quantity until the lights go down and the photons hit your eyeballs. I like that. And I appreciate that. And I want to keep having that. I'm not going to get the same buzz watching Serpico as I did the first time I watched it, when I was surprised by how the movie actually went negative on cops and how the shit that Al Pacino's Frank Serpico went through. When I first saw that in the 1970s, it was new, and I was shocked and surprised and delighted by it. I'm not going to get the same buzz watching it again. I think I'd be stupid to think I would. But I'm going to find new movies and movies I haven't seen before, new or not, that gave me the same buzz. You never get it from rewatching. You get it from something that you have not seen before. Adam says, what film wins the Oscar? I reckon it'll be Sinners in One Battle. Hamnet is a safe bet. I'll put 50 quid on it. I'm not that in love with the Oscars. I don't have a dog in that race. I'll just see what happens and hope that something spectacular happens and hope that nobody slaps another person. I'm not that in love with award shows. I'd rather hold true to my own opinions and see what other people think, which is fine. But I think Ryan Coogler deserves something because Sinners is an original. I think One Battle After Another is an original. And One Battle After Another speaks to this moment in American history in a way that very few movies at the moment do. And I think that's important too, in the same way that Casablanca was important in 1942. There are movies that speak to the slice of history we're living through. And One Battle After Another does that. D. Lee says, I like to watch old films I've never seen before as well as new ones that look interesting. Plenty of both. I totally agree. Graham says, so many movies are getting re-released here. I saw 1917 and A Knight's Tale last week. Haven't seen 1917 yet, but A Knight's Tale's anachronistic fun. Adam says, award shows are cringe. Used to love them when I was a kid, not anymore. I don't mind award shows particularly. I mean, I'm not going to reach out and get them. But if something interesting happens, I'll watch that bit on a slice from YouTube. But I think awarding excellence, not just with box office, is a good idea. And I've been a part of award shows. I handed out a Hugo Award in 1998. I've been nominated for Australian awards for science fiction writing, and not writing science fiction, but writing about science fiction and doing fanzines and things. So I understand awards. And to be honest with you, the best award ceremonies are the ones where you're nominated. Whether you win or not, you go through a roller coaster whether you win or not. It's kind of like what Noel Coward said about television. He said television was for being on, not for watching. If I'm nominated for an award, I don't get a buzz anywhere near that by watching it on TV, an award ceremony that I wasn't a part of. Friday says, Sinner's place is already ensured a place in history. Has more Oscar nominations than any other film. Absolutely, Friday. And Ryan Coogler owns all the rights to that in, I think, 25 years' time. So he gets back everything he put into it, plus more. He made all the money in the world for that movie because he had such a good deal. And it is a great movie. Adam says, how annoying is it that when someone says it was a bit beyond my time? Yeah. I think, as we get older, and yes, everybody is getting older, we've got to avoid living in the past. There are people who want a return to the past politically, a past that never existed, and there are people who want it in their media. I think, just speaking from a personal viewpoint, I'm not speaking for anybody else here. My wariness about nostalgia is partly because I think that if you only see things you've already seen before, that doesn't help your neuroplasticity. It doesn't help you stay sharp and alert as you age. I think it's more likely to lead to diminished consequences. Friday says, do love the clip of the Oscar streaker and David Niven's brilliant off the cuff comment. Yeah, but that works because of the randomness of what happened. I miss streakers, particularly female streakers, because of my orientation, but I think we need more streakers. Doug says, I love that rare moment when a movie makes you forget you're watching it and somehow become part of it, almost like a dream. Yeah. And good movies do that. They keep you in it. They keep you in they dominate your attention. Deb says, I love nostalgia, but also really actively seek out media I haven't seen. Two sides of the same coin. Yeah, we got to keep it balanced. Captain Laser says, the in memoriam section of the Oscars is the only part I watch. Nice to remember and learn about the creative people of cinema. There's always arguments about that too, going, why didn't you add this actor in the memoriam? And you look over their IMDb, they made a few films, but all of their celebrity came from television, which is why they weren't put in the in memoriam in the Oscars. There's annually a shitstorm on social media about those films and about those people, sorry. D. Lee says, I like the comic creator who won an Eisner Award and got it presented to him by Will Eisner himself. He said, when you win an Oscar, you don't get given it by Oscar. Yeah, I'm sure they could do it with CG now. Or worse to worse, AI. Deb says, awards are shite. First-hand experience here. I got an ARIA for overseas friends. It's all bollocks. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I've won a Ditmar Award, which is an Australian Science Fiction Achievement Award, and I got a William Atheling Jr. Award for criticism. I fucking love that I got those awards. And that's because I earned them. I worked for a long time writing reviews and making fanzines and doing all this stuff. And it took a long time to get them. I was nominated 12 times before I won an award. I love that. But the ceremonies at a certain level are okay. When they become industry ones, when they're based on monetizing something, I think that's where they become problematic. But an award for excellence and the fact that people thought what I did was worthy of being an award for excellence. I love that. And I love going to them too when I'm nominated, because even though there are no cameras particularly aimed at the audience and aimed at the nominees at an award at that level, I kind of act like there is. And even if I'm brokenhearted that I don't win them, I still try to appreciate the people who do. There's a whole emotional thing you get when you're nominated for an award, whether you win it or not. It's a mind state that's quite unlike anything else. Adam says, if you were to list the top 10, how many films will be older than you? I'm not sure I'd do a top 10. And if I did a top 10, it would change every couple of hours because I'd think of other movies that I really love. It'd be a flowing current rather than a rock solid brick of a list. Carol says, not sure about nostalgia, not really seen enough films to get that. I do often find award-winning books are bloody awful to me. Different taste, Carol, absolutely, and that's perfectly valid. Carol just tried to read Hilary Mantel's Tudor books, gave up after 6 chapters as I couldn't get into her style of storytelling. Very confusing. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't read Tolkien because I found it very twee. Dog's dad says, where's Luna? She's sleeping because she was up at 2 in the morning when I was. I went back to sleep for a couple of hours. But she was up and active. I know she may be outside because I've left the back door ajar so the cats can come in and out without me letting them in and out. So she may be basking in this early morning sun. Graham says, sad to hear Eric Dane died at such a young age. Did I watch The Last Ship? No. I heard about his death, but he wasn't somebody whose media I watched. Friday says there are awards to recognise people's efforts in a field, and there are awards to push the product. Yeah, the amount of money that goes into awards to promote things is enormous. I mean, there's a movie like The Secret Agent I saw in a fairly small cinema of people, because here in Australia it's a minor movie. It's an Argentinian film, incredibly good. Wagner Moura is terrific, and I've talked about it on the channel before. But I want that one to win all the awards because I think it's a powerful film. It's a movie that's not going to age because it is set in the past. It's set in the 1970s when there was, and actually it's Brazilian, it's not Argentinian. I apologize. It's Brazilian. It's about the Brazilian military junta in the 1970s. It's not going to age because it's a historic film, and it's also an incredibly powerful and grounded, realistic film. I want that to win all the awards. And I want that particular thing, call it a product, to be loved and recognized by everybody because it is just an incredibly powerful experience watching that film. Captain Laser says, turning classic movies does In Memoriam better, but agree complaints about omissions are pointless. Yeah, they are. Carol says, yeah, Tolkien and Pratchett, same for me. I hung out with Pratchett for a while at a convention. He snubbed me. All the awards are far too political for my taste. It's never the film person it should be, but who they want you to see. I think there's a certain amount of politics that's inevitably going to be in the form of awards at the moment. I think there are people you fight on every front, and there are organizations and movements you fight on every front with everything you've got. And movies like one battle after another, and the people involved in that. And if actors speak up politically at award ceremonies, I have no problem with that. You got to know who the enemy is, and you got to kick them in the nuts with whatever knee you have. I think that it's important to do that. I just think that if award ceremonies ignored the zeitgeist, they'd be being dishonest. Adam says, what film recently moved your very soul? The Secret Agent did. Sinners did. Every time I watch The Umbrellas of Cherbourg or The Young Girls of Rochefort, that does. There are a number of them that just lift me when I need to be lifted. But there are also some incredible grounded movies. One battle after another. The evilness of the organization in that, and I'm not going to do spoilers, and their relationship with Stephen Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn, that moved me in a way that I hated every one of those pricks. And I want further movies to delight me and move me and surprise me and appall me if they do it for the right reasons. There's just so much of, I want movies to make me feel things. And that's really important. Carol says, if a film makes me feel an emotional response, they want you to feel, then it's done its job. Yeah. Okay, what movie makes me so moved I only seen it once? None. And the only movie that I had trouble watching was Suspiria, but I overcame that eventually. And there were good reasons for that. There's a video about it on the channel. Hey, Deb, I have to leave early. Have a great day, everyone. I'm heading off to see The Secret Agent this week. You're going to have a good time, Deb. It's an incredibly powerful film, and I know this is the kind of film you like. Adam says, you're with me on that. Good. Thank you, Adam. Carol. Oh, wow. Peter's there. Aromatic enhancement time. It doesn't smell. It just makes a sound. Thank you very much, Peter. Give you a long one. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it, brother. Carol says, although the menopause is a lot to answer for as I cry at so many films now. Give the film some credit as well, Carol. It's a combination of them both. Yeah, there are movies that make me cry every time I see them, like The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Every time Theo Kretschmer-Schuldorf talks about being a refugee, I tear up during that because it's such a powerful moment and it speaks to their time. And it's just an amazing moment in cinema. Finally says Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire is a great film, but it's best viewed as a poem. Yeah. Carol says, I even cried at stupid Christmas phone ads last year. They wanted you to, Carol. That was it. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of stoic about certain things. And when a movie does make me cry, it's a powerful movie, and it triggers something in me and in my past and in my history and in my personality to be triggered by that. Adam says, Tokyo Story, only seen it once but need another view. Tokyo Story, yeah, it does that. Tokyo Story is such a simple and powerful movie. And Ozu is a magician. He can tell prosaic stories about families and make you love them and want the best for them and feel their emotions. There's an incredible power to that, which he never in his career misused. Dodge Morgan says, not a film, but a TV series I really enjoyed at the moment is The Night of the Seven Kingdom. Full gamut, funny, exciting, moving in the works. Haven't seen it, but I hear good things. Forsyth said, I cried watching The Elephant Man on the big screen. I can understand that too. And the weird thing about that is Mel Brooks was the producer. He's the one that got Lynch to make that movie. And he watched Razorhead before he hired David Lynch and said, you're a madman. You're going to make my movie for me. Doug says, I cry at even corny and bad movies, yet I'm overly stoked when real life hits me. Yeah, sometimes you've got to deal with what's in front of you in real life. I used to do this thing where I'd deal with anything that came my way, however monstrous and tragic it was. And then I'd have a meltdown afterwards. And, like have a real emotional meltdown after that. And then I talked to a psychologist and she said, why do you need to have an emotional breakdown afterwards? Why do you need to do that? And ever since then, I haven't. I've dealt with things and I've had the feels while I'm dealing with things. I've kind of integrated everything since then. Carol says, The Halfway House makes me cry every time I watch it. A lot of recent Disney too. Encanto surprisingly really stuck to the core of my family problems. Sometimes movies do. Sometimes movies integrate with the stuff you're going through. There's a really shit Disney movie called Follow Me, Boys, where one of the kids, I think he's played by Kurt Russell. This is a 1960s live action Disney. He's got a drunken father. And the drunken father is a prick. But because you can't have fathers being a negative thing in a Disney movie, they whitewash the character who conveniently died so the kid could be adopted by somebody else. And I was going through an abusive father thing when I first saw this in the 60s. And the emotional dishonesty of that movie made me hate it ever since. A white hot rage. If that movie, if I could erase that from human history, I would. Because that emotional dishonesty triggered my reality and my lived experience of a drunken, abusive father. And the fact that Disney whitewashed it really hit me hard. So there are these movies that strike chords with real things. And I was a kid at the time. This was a Disney movie and I was a kid. And yet it had something in it that pissed me off enormously and to this very day still does. Adam says, I like watching weepy films as catharsis. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, the movies I watch that trigger me to be crying aren't necessarily the weebies. They're movies that come out of left field and do that. Of course, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, you always cry at the end of that because if you don't, you're a piece of stone. But some of the other movies that do make me feel the feels are very much not the movies you'd think would make somebody cry. Got the last question. We've got 25 minutes left. I saw this in the media and in the good media, not the bad media. Let me just bring up the deets. There's this thing at the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney, which is they're letting people record a message to space that's going to be sent into space. And it's going to be broadcast into deep space. It's part of a global initiative where MIT Arts and Nanotechnology in Space, Humanity United with MIT Arts and Nanotechnology in Space. They're sending a deep space messaging. You can go to the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney and record a short message to send into space to potentially inform other intelligences about humanity and about who we are or who we were by the time they get the message. What would be your brief message to send into space about humanity? Now, don't get shitty, don't get arch and snarky, but what would be your message about the human race that you would send into space? Adam says, what other forms of art move you in visceral way? Music can, of course. Documentary definitely can. There's just so many things, but music would be the big one. Carol's message to space will be, we're not all as bad as it looks. Absolutely. That's one way to put it. Forsyth says, send help before we destroy our planet. No, we've got to do that for ourselves. Doug says, I love the Powerhouse Museum. I always visit it when I lived in Sydney. Yeah. Powerhouse Museum is diverse as hell, and it's really good from adults to kids. It caters to everybody, the Powerhouse. I mean, I think what would my message be? I could get the snarky answer would be, sorry we killed off the other human species. But the real message would be something like, we tried to be better than we were in the past. We tried to overcome our biological and personal shortcomings. We shit in our own nest, but most of us are trying to clean it up. And we let the worst of us have all the power for a time. And hopefully we will stop doing that. Dodge Morgan says, message will be goodbye. I wish we could have met because it'll take hundreds of thousands of years to reach anyway. Yeah. There is that joke about the golden record that was sent in the Voyager probes. And they had a lot of music put on there as well. And the joke was that they sent back a message saying, send more Chuck Berry. But it's something to think about. Just, thinking about a brief phrase to encapsulate the human race. And a bunch of people have done that at the Powerhouse Museum. There's one woman whose native language is Arabic. And let's have a look here. I'll just find the details because I think this is important stuff. To Dr. Maya Nasser, Harvard University science engineer, was one of the project leads on this. And her message was, let's see. And she recorded this in Arabic because she's Lebanese. I would like the universe to remember that we carried contradictions within us while searching for meaning. That we were human beings who dreamed, made mistakes, loved, and created memories. That our story is not only about our achievements, but about the small moments between us, our love, our uncertainty, our constant attempts, because that's what made life worth living. That's as good an answer to that question as any I've heard of. Friday says our strength is hope. We try, we fail, we get back up, try again, and try to fail better. So that's the Chumbawamba response, is it? But that's a good one. Graham says, I recently watched a YouTube short of a very talented penis playing in public music from Interstellar, and that got me, yeah. Peter says, a nice place to visit, just to visit. No, that's Surface Paradise. But yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's good to think about these things sometimes and think about how we perceive ourselves and how, yeah, at the moment, the worst of us are prevailing. The worst people in the world are in the ascendancy. But I love the way people are fighting back against that. I love the idea of people in Minneapolis throwing dildos at the cars with the ice people in them. I love the creative ways that we stand up against authoritarianism. There's a lot going on at the moment. And I don't think, I mean, there's nowhere in the world that fascism prevailed for more than a couple of decades. Yes, it did happen in Spain. It was there for a while. And in Brazil, of course, and Argentina and other places. But inevitably and eventually, it's brought down. And for a time, our better selves prevail. And I think that's an important quality of human beings too. We build communities, and we build communities to protect communities. And they don't necessarily have to be antagonistic to one another. And there's this interesting thing going on where Europe and Canada, and to a certain extent Japan and Australia and New Zealand, are building alliances that work around the current carbuncle that the political in the United States has become at the moment. I like that, building communities to go around things that will hurt us. I see that as a positive aspect of being human. And they're not letting their fear overcome them. They're letting their better angels build a network. And I like that. Doug says, not movie related, but do you think Andrew will disappear or have a mysterious accident sometime? I'm not going into conspiracy things. I want the rule of law to prevail where it comes to Andrew. And I think at the moment it is. And it only is because the ultimate authority of his brother have cut him loose. If they hadn't cut him loose, none of this would ever happen. And you've got to remember, they didn't get him for sleeping with an underage woman. Well, raping an underage woman is the only way to say it. They got him for sending emails to Epstein with information he shouldn't have given to him. And, it's good that they caught him. And it's like Al Capone. They caught Al Capone for tax evasion. They didn't catch him for all the shit he did apart from that. But getting them for something is better than getting them for nothing. I'm not going to think they're going to kill him off. I don't think they need to. What they're going to be doing is put him in jail and tearing out his fangs. And sometimes that's going to have to be enough. Dodge Morgan says, didn't the Beatles refuse to let them put one of their songs on Voyager's golden discs? No royalties and such. Yeah, they probably did, but I think it's to their detriment. Dick says, Planet Earth's message to alien life forms. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to see more. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. I think you should. If you haven't, everybody who's watching this video is obviously subscribed. But yeah, that's not a bad message. Carol says, even as a royalist, I agree Andrew deserved to try it and hope he found guilty. Yeah, for me, I'm not a royalist. I don't think any person is better than any other person, and any instrumentality that um, encourages that is something I want to fight against. Stop sending me messages on my phone. But yeah, I've got no time for aristocracies. It's just it goes against my egalitarian Australian nature. But that would then raise the question: with what if it wasn't Andrew? What if it was Charles? What if it was William? Would the rule of law still prevail in those cases? And I can't see an argument for yes. I don't think it would. I think that's the problem. Francis, polling on the royal family is showing less and less approval, which is great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't get them out of there. Turn it into a museum. You don't need that house, all those houses for just 2 or 3 people. Turn them into Weatherspoons. But yeah, I mean, it was really funny because we went past Buck House in 2004. And I thought, that's a big house for 2 old age pensioners to live in. But yeah, I've got absolutely no time for aristocracy or royalty because I don't think it's the best of humanity. You know, you've got all this privilege because your ancestors were assholes. Doesn't seem right. But yeah, we got. Carol says, yeah, but only the king is exempt. But it wouldn't because Charles and William are decent people. Royal family gives a lot of employment and helps charities. How do you know they're decent people? How do you know it's not publicity? There's a whole organization to sell that story about those people. And I've got no respect for anybody who marries a woman just to use her as a brood hen for the next generation of the family. And doesn't marry her because of love and respect and anything like else, apart from squirting out kids. I think that's dishonest. And then to marginalize that woman and for the organization that the family is, to disrespect her and disrespect other people, Meghan Markle included. I've got no time for those people. And I don't think they're good people. And I don't think at any level of humanity they pass the sniff test. Adam says, yep, I'm from the UK and those guys have done nothing for the culture. Dodge Morgan says, what if the Andy movie is being written as we speak? I know that Michael Sheen did a TV thing about the interview with Emily Maitlis, which is very interesting. Adam says, we pay a lot of taxes to those people. Well, you pay it to the country. It's just those people are skimming off the top of those taxes, as they have for centuries. And yeah, I think they're rich enough you can cut them loose with no negative consequences to them, apart from constant cash flow from other things. Those people own too much of your country. If anybody owned that much of Australia, and Gina Reinhardt wants to, we'd have words about that. The nation should own the land that isn't privately owned by other people. The fact that one family owns so much of England and Wales and Scotland and probably Northern Ireland is not right, particularly given that it was taken by force. Wales was taken by force. Scotland was taken by force. It's not right. Carol says, no, we pay taxes to the government and the royals pay tax too. I'm not getting into any arguments about it on here. Fair enough, but do they pay their fair share? But yeah, I think there's a genetic component to this. If people are instinctively anti-royalist, their ancestors would have got killed off for being that. or sent to Australia, where we don't, there's only a few rich people and a few very old people who support England's royalty, even though they're still Australia's head of state. And we did have a Republican referendum, which was defeated because the questions they asked in the referendum were designed to make it fail. I mean, I'm in favour of taxation, by the way. I think taxation buys civilization. It's not private enterprise that creates civilization. It's the commonwealth of people and the nation that builds civilization. So taxes buy civilization. They buy schools, they buy roads, they buy infrastructure, they buy education, they buy national broadcasters. I mean, big favour of taxation for that reason. But I don't like one family skimming off the top. I voted yes in the Republican referendum. I voted yes for the Indigenous recognition referendum. I voted yes for marriage equality, which is the only one of those three that came true. But I think the best of us is egalitarian. It's here in Australia, it's manifested by, if I get into a taxi in Australia, I get into the front seat. I don't sit in the back, because our taxis are designed to be egalitarian. And the history of taxis in Australia is, if you're one person, you sit up the front and have a conversation with the driver. You don't sit in the back. And if you look at Australian prime ministers getting into their government cars, the prime minister never sits in the back seat. He sits in the front seat near his driver and has a conversation with him. That's the kind of country I live in. Friday says, taxes pay for the things society needs that private industry won't pay for because it doesn't make a profit. Yeah, I mean, making a profit on things that are publicly owned. I mean, we have a couple of private jails here, which I hate, and a few other things that are privatized. The employment service was privatized, which is why I was given a sack in the late 1990s, even though I loved helping people find jobs. But I wouldn't work the way the private industry wanted me to work. Captain Laser says, I do like the idea of Commonwealth nations, countries that are friendly to each other, which we need more of. We need that internationally, regardless of whether they're Commonwealth. Australia had the issue with Gough Whitlam, which would have coloured the attitude of the royalty for many. Yeah, because the royal family, and Charles in particular, encouraged the Governor-General to sack the legitimate government of Australia in 1975. So Charles isn't a good person. He was a prick then. He thought he had the right to tell the whole country that their voting for a prime minister wasn't good enough. So screw that guy. Dodge Morgan says, upcoming movies you're looking forward to. The Odyssey. I want to see The Odyssey because I do like Christopher Nolan stuff. I want to see Project Hail Mary. Definitely want to see that. There are a bunch of them. There are some small films, like small crime movies coming out that look kind of interesting. Yeah, the future of cinema is just so abundant. The number of movies coming out in 2026 is enormous. And yes, some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be bad. Some of them are going to go viral on social media. Some of them are going to be forgotten in a week. But they're going to be here. There are going to be a lot of them. They're going to be really treasurable. And inevitably in 2026, there's going to be those 1 or 2 or 3 films that are going to be remembered for 100 years. They're going to be appreciated and studied and revered, and rightly so, for the next century. I think Sinners is one of them, One Battle After Another, maybe one of them. Fairly sure that Wuthering Heights isn't going to be one of them. A movie set in Yorkshire starring 2 Queenslanders Apparently, it's not doing too well. Animated features I'm looking forward to. I haven't been up on animated features, Captain Laser. I'm not really tapped into that particularly. And Adam says, we live in hope for good art. Yeah. Little Amelie is good animation, according to D. Lee. I'm not aware of that one. I'm just so full up at the moment with the stuff I am watching. And I have kept up with my one movie a day, so I'm still a couple of days ahead of that, which is kind of cool. And I appreciate that. Last movie I watched, I'll tell you the last movie I watched. Toxic Avenger Part 2. I'm going through the Tox box set of 4K Toxic Avenger movies. And I watched the second Toxic Avenger movie, which is Grindhouse in the best way. It's Troma in the best way. Set partly in Japan, and I really loved it. Adam says, Oi, I'm from Yorkshire. Yeah, a Yorkshire story with two Queenslanders in it. Don't think it's the best adaptation of Wuthering Heights either. My grandparents were from Yorkshire on my father's side, so yeah. But most of the family is Welsh. Carol says, I haven't seen anything about a film called Hoppers and Goat. Yeah, I saw the previews for both of those. Looks kind of fun. Both of them look kind of fun. And I saw them because Billy and I went to see the SpongeBob SquarePants movie this year. And Goat and Hoppers were two of the trailers that came with that movie. They look like fun. D. Lee says, I got a box set of the original Force and Trinians films yesterday. Good catch. It is. I love those. And again, for their time, they were transgressive movies. They were punching upwards all through those Centurion movies. They were punching upwards at bureaucracy and the upper class in a fun way. Friday says, got to watch The Hunt. Nice action, but very poor satire. I've heard that. Yep, Sally's up because she just turned my life off and on. So she's awake now because she didn't get enough sleep lately. And she's 3 minutes before the end of the live stream. I'm near Miss Morecambe. Yeah, we went to Morecambe when we went to England, Scotland, and Wales in 2004. Saw the statue of Eric Morecambe on the waterfront, revered it. George Morgan says, hoping for a great ghostly version of A Christmas Carol by Robert Eggers to round out 2026. I like Robert Eggers' stuff. I like the fact that it's very dark and different from other movies. His Nosferatu was great too. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, that ending just sits with you for a while at the end of Nosferatu. Carol watched Hotel Transylvania 3 yesterday. Very silly, good-natured fun. Animation on that series is kind of cool too. Sal likes the Hotel Transylvania movies. She watches them and keeps threatening to make me watch them, which she can't do, but you know, we've got them on disc as well. So yeah, I mean, kids animation. I didn't mind the SpongeBob movie, though for some reason I started to nod off during parts of it. But yeah, SpongeBob's harmless fun, and I kind of enjoyed it. And I always like seeing movies with Billy because it builds memories with family. And I did that with my uncles, and so I passed it down to my nephew. And we do that every time we get together is watch a movie. And I get to he picked the last two movies. I get to pick the next two. He did the Minecraft movie and the SpongeBob one. So next time around, it may be Robert Eggers' Christmas one. Who knows? But I'm going to be doing that. Adam says, Eric Morecambe's mum lived opposite and even saw him back in the mid-70s talking to the neighbours. I mean, he was the most famous person at that time in the country. Apparently, he was a nice guy too, which is great. But guess what, people? We really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast, our time has passed, and we must end our show. So that's it for the live stream. Thanks very much to everybody being a part of this. Thanks to Peter for the super chat. Thanks to everybody for the chats, even when we disagreed. we talked, and I think that's very, very important. So everybody really look after yourselves, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Just do everything you can to make the world just that little bit better. And I'll catch you next time.